Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
We have breaking news to report. A source confirms law enforcement found a gun today at Mervo High School in Baltimore. This is the 6th gun found in a Baltimore City school this year. You'll remember a student was killed walking out of Mervo in September. This is a developing story. We'll bring you more information as it becomes available.
Well, turning now to our top story, and the mayor announcing his squeegee collaborative report. It comes 4 months after the mayor first formed the group, in the days after police say a squeegee kid shot and killed Timothy Reynolds near the Inner Harbor. There have been encounters between drivers and squeegee kids. Drivers have accused squeegee kids of assault, damaging cars, and stealing money. Here are the 3 big takeaways from today's announcement. The squeegee kids will be banned from 6 major intersections. You can see them here in red. The mayor says there will be quick response teams to ensure no squeegee activity happens in them. The enforcement starts January 10th with 2 warnings before a citation. Outreach workers from city schools will work to get squeegee kids back into class, and drivers will also be held accountable for their behavior towards squeegee kids in those disallowed zones. Now, the city will be offering support services that the mayor is calling Earn and Learn. It will pay squeegee kids to participate in workforce training for up to 1 year. Squeegee kids will be required to commit stop squeegee activity to get the money, but it's not clear how that will be enforced. We have live team coverage of the squeegee collaborative recommendations. Maxine Stryker with reaction from incoming City State's Attorney Ivan Bates in a few minutes. But our team coverage begins with Mackenzie Frost, who questioned city leaders about how the plan will be enforced. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Kai and Mary, so we are learning that there are nearly 20 different components. The city is saying about 18 different aspects of this plan. And really, there are a lot of different ways and results from the squeegee collaborative. But the big question comes down to how this plan will be enforced and how it will work. If you remember, for months, the city has been saying that the laws on the books banning this type of behavior would not be enforced because of concerns surrounding constitutionality. Well, now we're learning that starting January 10th, there will be various zones around the city where squeegeeing will not be prohibited, or will be prohibited. They will not be allowed. I tried to get some clarity from the city about what, if anything, changed inside the Scott administration's thinking and interpretation of the law, since we have been hearing for months that what we are seeing on the books won't be enforced.
We always enforce the law. We made arrests in the last couple of weeks, but what we're talking about is, the deputy is going to talk about, is equitable constitutional enforcement, not going back to what we did before, which you heard about from Vicky today, about being seen as human, not human as an animal just because you're black. We're not going back to that ever again in Baltimore.
The question in terms of enforceability, we believe, has 2 different sections. The question that has been raised usually in the media, which we've heard over and over again, is the enforceability of the laws as written. And we acknowledge that that is a vital first step. However, how you enforce is really, if not as important, more important, because there can be laws that are constitutional as written, but then in practice unenforced. A lot of the proposals initially were in the roundabout ways of clearing the corners or rounding people up, or pretty much just removing them from visibility. And we believe that the Constitution requires us to create a narrowly tailored approach.
So really, it's still not exactly clear, but it appears as if the city will continue not enforcing those laws on the books. We also know that just because squeegeeing will likely take place in other areas, not in those zones where the activity will be prohibited, those squeegee kids, the mayor says that there's always the conversation about something like this pushing to other areas, and it's not clear what will happen to those kids if that will be allowed as well. Mary and Kai?
Mackenzie, do we know how much this is going to cost taxpayers, and ultimately, basically, where's the money coming from?
That is another big question. We heard from Deputy Mayor Faith Leach. She was the one chairing the Squeegee Collaborative. She's putting a rough estimate on this at about $5 million, but she was very quick to say that that's not the final price tag. There's also unclear concerns about where the money is coming from. The city says that they're working on some grants and some working with private sector money involved in this. We also don't have a specific price tag for how much money these Squeegee kids will be getting and when they are participating in that Earn and Learn program. I did ask her what type of mechanisms are in place to ensure that the kids who are participating in this program are not also going back out on the corners and squeegeeing for extra money. We'll have that answer coming up for you at 5 o'clock. Mary and Kai.
And Mackenzie, there's also news in terms of efforts to curb violent crime in the city. The governor and U.S. Attorney for Maryland apparently is sending in what they call surge efforts. What's that about? How will that be targeted and structured?
Well, Kai, it's a two-pronged approach. We heard from Governor Larry Hogan and U.S. Attorney for Maryland Eric Barron earlier this morning. They say that they will be taking some Maryland State Troopers, along with Transit Authority and local police, not in Baltimore City, though, to put around areas, the roads going in and out of the city to try and prevent guns and drugs from getting into the city in the first place. That's also in partnership with a different program that will be targeting parole and probation supervisors. And we heard some tough words from the U.S. Attorney for Maryland earlier today.
If you intend to drive with guns or drugs on a Maryland road, you better think twice. If you are on parole or probation, we may be coming to your home. We hope and expect that you're in compliance, and we're there to help. But if you're not in compliance, you will be held accountable.
We'll take a closer look at this plan that was announced again earlier this morning, coming up at 4:30. We're live in Baltimore. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. Well, back to the Squeegee Collaborative. Several city leaders joined Mayor Scott for the announcement today, including Police Commissioner Michael Harrison and the city school leader as well. But one leader was noticeably absent, the next Baltimore State's Attorney, Ivan Bates. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker continues our live team coverage. Maxine?
Yeah, Mary, we sort of expected that we would see Bates there today, as of course his office will play a large role when it comes to the accountability aspect of this Squeegee Collaborative plan. Scott and Bates, they have appeared divided over enforcement when it comes to Squeegee kids in the past several months. Bates telling Fox 45 News when he takes office, he supports the removal of Squeegee kids from city streets and did not believe the act was panhandling. We questioned the mayor about Bates' absence today.
Mr. Mayor, I noticed that the city's next top prosecutor isn't here. Is there a reason for that? How do you plan?
I was waiting on that, so I'll just say before you say it, ask the question. We have briefed State's Attorney Bates. He is in agreement. He and I, we talked specifically about, he asked some questions around what you guys call guaranteed income, that we're talking about earn and learn. Again, I'll say it 3 times so y'all remember. Earn and learn, earn and learn, earn and learn. That it's about the way that we present it. There is no issue, there's no space between our new State's Attorney and me on this issue. Don't try to create it. Don't try to spread this kind of hate and divisiveness between 2 black men. Baltimore is not going to stand for it.
Maxine, you reached out to Ivan Bates today. What is his response to the plan, and why wasn't he part of today's announcement?
Well, Bates did not say if he was invited or not today, or really why he wasn't there, instead sending us a statement saying, in part, as State's Attorney-elect, I will do my part to enforce the laws and support the Mayor Squeegee Collaborative. Since the beginning of my candidacy, I have advocated for the enforcement of laws that prohibit this type of behavior, which creates a danger for drivers, while at the same time I've recommended programs that provide positive resources. He says he believes the mayor's plan does both and is a step in the right direction towards addressing a long-standing challenge facing our city. So now it does appear the pair, they seem to be on the same page, at least more than they were before. And the mayor insists they are in full agreement with the plan and how it's being enforced, and says that none of this came as a surprise to Bates today. Reporting live in Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Maxine, thank you. Fox 45 News is demanding answers from city council members about today's squeegee collaborative report. We sent several questions asking, do you agree with the recommendations from the squeegee collaborative? What will you do to ensure the city follows through on the recommendations in the plan? How will the city ensure squeegee kids receiving financial support will stop squeegeeing? And what is the city's long-term plan to deal with squeegee kids? So far, we've not heard back.
Well, we want you to join the conversation. Do you believe the squeegee plan will be fully implemented and work? So far, 91% of those who voted say no. You can vote right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote.
Well, Baltimore police need your help to identify a man captured in surveillance in the brazen shooting that left a 13-year-old girl critically injured. Alexa Ashwell joins us live right now with these images. And Alexa, you spoke personally with the commissioner about this latest investigation. It's a heartbreaking story.
Yes, Kai, it really is. The commissioner not ready to call this man a person of interest, but tells me they have yet to identify or locate him and need the public's help. Newly released images of a man the Baltimore Police Department is looking to identify as a 13-year-old girl clings to life at a nearby hospital. Today, officers returning to this liquor store near the corner of Fayette and Caroline Streets in southeast Baltimore, where early Monday evening, the commissioner says a suspect opened fire on a group of people surrounding a car in the parking lot. One of the bullets striking the 13-year-old girl in her head, the child, an innocent bystander. A man was also shot. His involvement, if any, unclear.
People have expressed that this is an area where drug sales often occur. Is that a motive in this shooting? And if so, what's being done to address that?
Well, it's unknown what the motive is. And so that's what detectives are working on in their investigation right now.
Commissioner Michael Harrison detailing the motive remains under investigation. People fed up over the violence.
People are angry, people are scared, but they're frustrated also.
And looking for more to be done. The commissioner pleading for the public to speak up and help them identify this man.
Are you able to take it a step further and call him a person of interest at this point?
Well, we are, number one, glad that we have that image. What we need is for anyone who recognizes him to please call us right away. We have not yet identified who he is officially. That's why it's so important for the community to give us a call Crime Stoppers anonymously.
And another look at those images here. The teen remains in critical condition. Anyone with any information on this case is asked to call police. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
This is a new era in Maryland with 3 statewide offices turning over. It's the first time in over 100 years that every statewide seat was open on the ballot at the same time. So we'll have never seen a transition quite like this.
In Vote 2022 coverage, Comptroller-elect Brooke Learman announces her transition team as she prepares to take control of the office in January.
Amy Simpson was in Annapolis for the announcement today. She joins us live with the very latest. Amy.
Yeah, Mary Kai, so Learman says that she's ready to get to work. She says she's vowing to make the comptroller's office more modern, accessible, and proactive. Today, she announced a team of 6 people to help transition the comptroller's office over the next 2 months. Current comptroller Peter Francho, Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks, and State Senator Susan Lee were named as honorary chairs of this transition team, while Maryland Treasurer Nancy Kopp, State Delegate Joseline Pena-Melnick, and the Chief of Staff to UMBC's President Candace Dodson-Reed were each named committee co-chairs. The transition team will reportedly focus on 6 areas of the comptroller's office. Those are procurement and the Board of Public Works, tax administration and customer engagement, data and innovation, pensions, public engagement, and local government engagement. Learman said today there's a reason her transition team is a diverse group of mostly women.
As the first woman independently elected to statewide state office in Maryland, comes with that, I believe, a responsibility to make sure that we are listening and learning from the women in Maryland. Somebody said to me the other day, why are you appointing all women? And I said, why not?
And Amy, we know current comptroller Peter Francho is leaving office. What are his plans once his tenure is over in the new year?
Yeah, so we know he was unsuccessful in his bid to be the Democratic candidate for governor on the ballot just 2 days ago. And I asked him that today. I asked him what's next for Peter Franchot, and he declined to answer. He said he has a few irons in the fire, but he does still have 2 months left as comptroller. Reporting live tonight, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. Concerns about the state of democracy before the midterms, but were those concerns for real?
Starting next year, marijuana will be legal in Maryland. But what about those with prior drug convictions? I'm Rebecca Pryor, and coming up after the break, I'll tell you how hundreds of thousands of Marylanders could have their charges cleared.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Maryland voters have spoken, with just over 65% of you voting yes to legalizing recreational marijuana on Tuesday.
The new law means starting next year, a small amount of cannabis will be decriminalized for those 21 and older. But what about those with prior drug convictions?
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has new information. Rebecca?
Yeah, guys, this new law will do more than just legalize cannabis moving forward. It could also go backwards, clearing past convictions for hundreds of thousands of Marylanders.
It's been an absolutely incredible turnout.
Speaking with us at an expungement clinic put on by Maryland Legal Aid in West Baltimore.
977.
Local lawyer Angus Derbyshire says the recent change to Maryland's marijuana law will be life-changing for many.
So it really is going to open the door for a lot of people who, for many reasons, it was shut to for years and years before.
Accompanying the law that will legalize marijuana for recreational use, expungement provisions were also put in place when Question 4 passed on Tuesday. The revised code will automatically clear all simple possession charges when it's the only charge. That will be completed by July 1st of 2024. However, Derbyshire says, don't wait.
While it might happen automatically, you can also take an affirmative step. If it's been more than 4 years, you have a conviction, possession of marijuana charge, it likely can come off now.
You don't even need a lawyer
easier to file a petition. For just $30, anyone can fill out a form on the Maryland Judiciary's expungement page. The new law also allows for the resentencing and, in some cases, release of those currently incarcerated for a cannabis charge and for those with intent to distribute charges.
So before, possession with intent to distribute charges wouldn't come off people's records for 15 years. So under the new statute, those charges can now come off after 4 years.
But Derbyshire says ultimately what this law really does.
I think conviction in any case, including marijuana charges, can have a significant impact on people's ability to access jobs, access housing.
Is break down barriers for those searching for a clean slate.
I think it's absolutely a step in the right direction.
The Maryland Legal Aid is currently hosting about 3 to 4 of these expungement clinics a week. If you're looking to take advantage of one of them, you can find the details of their events in this story on our website at foxbaltimore.com. Reporting live in Baltimore, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Well, we are closely tracking the impacts of Nicole. Now, Nicole, it is inland over Florida. It's a tropical storm now, hit early this morning as a Category 1 hurricane. First time in November that we've had a hurricane hit the United States in 37 years. But around here, storms will start tomorrow. The rain could start as early as tomorrow morning's commute, so this could be impactful. I did put in now a weather alert day for tomorrow because of that timing, as well as maybe not so much the winds. We'll have about 20 to 35 mile-an-hour winds, but there will be an isolated tornado chance with a marginal risk of severe weather and occasional downpours. Maybe not flooding so much, but blinding kind of tropical downpours of potential. We're going to be on the eastern side of this storm. Notice the western side has kind of this more just heavier rain appearance, but on the eastern side, as this moves over the extreme northeastern portion of the Gulf of Mexico, it's got these feeder bands with the thunderstorms that are moving onshore. That's the more unstable side, the kind of southerly flow, if you will, that's on the eastern side of these tropical systems. And that whole pattern is going to move northbound. So on the western side is where you have the heavy rain threat. And on the eastern side is where you have the potential of some severe weather. Again, this thing's really going to be falling apart as it gets closer, as it gets picked up by this cold front that's out to the west. It kind of pairs up and moves up the coastline. But again, there will still be some of those impacts that are part and parcel of a landfalling tropical system. Now, notice by midday tomorrow, by the time the impacts are really getting going here, this thing's a remnant low over the central portion of the Appalachians. So it's really going to get torn apart. But the mechanics in the atmosphere are still there to put down anywhere up to about a ½ inch to 1.5 inches of rain. The big rains, again, north and west of where the eventual track of that remnant is going to be, which is over the Appalachians. And we have that potential, again, of some of those bands of thunderstorms rolling through. So a level 1 of 5 or marginal risk of severe weather tomorrow. The bigger threat is going to be the slight risk down to our south. But if we get any sunshine in between bands of rain tomorrow, that's really going to up our chances of getting potentially some damaging winds out of any thunderstorms that come through, or maybe even a spin-up tornado. It's not out of the question. That's very typical with impacts from landfalling tropical systems. 68 degrees, mostly cloudy skies right now on the Toyota Inner Harbor Skycam. It's kind of a milky sky, but it looks good. Winds out of the east-northeast at 7 miles an hour. Look at what happens behind all of this. Temperatures in the 60s, 70s, East Coast, 16 right now from Bismarck all the way to Billings. So there is serious cold behind this, and it looks like we're going to get some of that. Maybe not that cold, but it will chill down seriously behind this. All right, so the forecast overnight into early tomorrow morning should stay mainly dry, but look at that rain approaching by about 7:45 a.m. and then on and off. You see those bands of rain coming through time and time again all the way through the afternoon on into the evening. I think our biggest threat of getting any gusty winds probably late tomorrow afternoon during the PM commute into tomorrow evening. There's a little window there as the center of this gets closest to us. And also that's kind of when we had the biggest risk of any severe weather. And then into Saturday, stuff clears out quick. There could be a spot shower here or there as our cold front swings through 66. And look at that, temperatures only in the 40s to near 50 for highs into early next week. So there's that slug of much chillier air.
Jonathan, thank you. Governor Hogan announces sweeping new plans to crack down on crime in Baltimore City. Details on these plans and when they'll take effect.
I'm Christine Frizell with a look at one of the top campaign issues for Democrats, the threat to democracy, and how it played out this election cycle.
Is our democracy in peril? That was one of the arguments made by candidates and lawmakers ahead of this year's midterm election. Sinclair national correspondent Christine Frizzau brings us a closer look.
Make no mistake, democracy is on the ballot for all of us.
Throughout the midterm campaign, it was a repeated refrain, especially from Democrats.
I think a vote tomorrow is a vote to defend our democracy.
Warnings sent about what might happen on Election Day.
There are 50% of Americans have election deniers on the ballot.
But many of those candidates painted as election deniers lost. But instead of fighting the results, sent statements like this from Michigan gubernatorial candidate Tudor Dixon, saying she called Governor Whitmer to concede. Lee Zeldin congratulating New York Governor Hochul on her election to a full 4-year term. And Dr. Mehmet Oz sending well wishes to John Fetterman and his family, both personally and as our next U.S. Senator. The New York Times even reported concessions are making a comeback, as concerns about voter intimidation and updates to voting bills in states like Arizona, Texas, and Georgia,
Jim Crow 2.0,
didn't appear to stifle turnout.
But there are questions about what could have happened down the road had some of those candidates won, and what to expect from candidates in still undecided races, some of whom are voicing election concerns.
The system we have right now does not work. We, the people, deserve to know on election night the winner and the loser.
But with the investigation into the attack at the U.S. Capitol still underway, political analysts say it's not only a legitimate concern, but one that likely helped drive some voters to the polls.
We know that high turnout tends to help Democrats. People tend to vote when they're angry or scared, and so the Democrats are saying the stakes are super high. You've got to come out and vote.
With votes still being counted in some parts of the country, in others, a sigh of relief. Most systems worked as they should. I'm Christine Frizzau reporting.
Tech companies have led the way, but after sweeping layoffs, I asked the experts, what does this mean for our economy?
Winter is coming, and SHA and MDOT are ready.
Winter is on the way. It's that time of year where driving can get dangerous. How state officials are preparing to keep you safe.
As we mentioned earlier, Governor Larry Hogan is working with U.S. Attorney of Maryland Eric Barron to try and curb gun violence in Baltimore.
That announcement comes just a month before Hogan leaves office, but he says these efforts could help save lives in the city long term and short term.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost joins us live again with a look at that plan. Mackenzie?
Mary, like we said, it's a two-pronged approach, right? The first is a feeder route task force, and this will be utilizing state troopers, transit authority, and police officers from Baltimore County and Anne Arundel counties to patrol some of the routes going in and out of Baltimore City. If we put up the map, you can see exactly what routes. They're highlighted right there on your screen. Those will be the target areas of this new enforcement team, part of the surge that we're hearing from the governor as well as the federal government. Now, U.S. Attorney for Maryland Eric Barron had some pretty tough words for anyone who's looking to potentially engage in criminal activity in Baltimore City or moving through the area.
If you intend to drive with guns or drugs on a Maryland road, you better think twice.
So, Mackenzie, the governor and U.S. Attorney also announced a plan to target people on parole and probation. What do we know about how this will work?
Yeah, Kai, it's called a knock and talk approach, and they say that they will be making unannounced visits to anyone who's on parole, probation, supervision in Baltimore City. They say the goal really will be to include and make sure that people are complying with their regulations and the rules. The people doing this will be police officers along with social workers. And the U.S. Attorney really said that compliance is the key. They say they will be providing services, but he also says that enforcement will be utilized if necessary.
We hope and expect that you're in compliance, and we're there to help. But if you're not in compliance, you will be held accountable.
Now, I asked Governor Hogan how this new plan, this surge approach to getting violent crime under control in the city, fits into Mayor Brandon Scott's holistic approach to addressing violent crime. We'll have the governor's response coming up and a full report coming up in about an hour. Live in Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, turning back to our top story, the mayor announces his squeegee collaborative report. It comes 4 months after the mayor first formed the group in the days after police say a squeegee kid shot and killed Timothy Reynolds near the Inner Harbor.
There have been multiple encounters between drivers and squeegee kids since that time. Drivers are accusing some squeegee kids of assault, damaging their cars, and stealing money.
And here are the big 3 takeaways from today's announcement.
The squeegee kids will be banned from 6 major intersections. You can see them in red. The mayor says there will be quick response teams to ensure no squeegee activity happens in them.
The enforcement starts January 10th with 2 warnings before a citation is issued. Outreach workers from city schools will work to get some squeegee kids back into class. Drivers will also be held accountable for their behavior towards squeegee kids in those zones.
The city will be offering support services that the mayor is calling Earn and Learn. It will pay squeegee kids to participate in workforce training for up to a year. Squeegee kids will be required to commit to stop squeegee activity to get the money, but it's not clear how that will be enforced.
There can be laws that are constitutional as written, but then in practice unenforceable. And I'll give you an example. If you have certain panhandlers that are going through with signs or charitable organizations stating that they want money and they're going car to car outside of the median strip, but then you say if you have a squeegee worker, because they have a squeegee stick, that now that person is a disfavored speaker. So you're labeling, you're basing your reaction on the content of that speech. And when you do that, that's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause, and that will be struck down.
Well, some Baltimore city leaders have argued existing laws against squeegeeing are unconstitutional based on a Supreme Court decision protecting panhandling, as you just heard from the deputy city solicitor.
That's right. Joining us live in studio now is former Baltimore City prosecutor Thuroo Vignoraja. Thanks for coming in to talk about this.
Thanks for having me.
Do you think squeegeeing is protected speech, or do you believe a conviction for aggressive solicitation would hold up in court?
Look, one of the most encouraging dimensions of this plan is that the mayor appears to have woken up to the reality that there is nothing unconstitutional about enforcing the law against people that are darting in and out of traffic, touching other people's vehicles, and creating these really, really dangerous, friction-filled circumstances. There's no question that enforcement of those laws that are already on the books is constitutional and would hold up in court.
Through now that city leaders have said that they may eventually hand out citations, if they say it's unconstitutional, shouldn't their hands be tied in a sense? It seems a little contradictory.
Yeah, look, it probably didn't help that the mayor and his colleagues publicly said that they thought it was unconstitutional, only to then change their minds 4 months later and say we can actually enforce the law. But at the end of the day, the judges know the law, the lawyers know the law, and it's going to be clear that there's nothing prohibiting the city from enforcing laws that keep young kids darting out of traffic off the streets. That's going to be a good development. And now we just need to make sure that the mayor actually does what he says he's going to do.
What do you think about the overall squeegee collaborative plan and the different parts of it? Do you think it'll work?
Look, I think it's really encouraging that the mayor has woken up to the reality that enforcement has to be a part of the plan. I don't know why it took 4 months to come up with this. I don't know why it's going to take $5 million a year to enforce the law on 6 corners. But at the end of the day, no one's going to be happier if this actually works. And I do think an enforcement component is going to be critical. If they stick to that, you can expect some real results. If they waffle and ultimately fold, then we're just allowing these young kids to hold the city hostage. And the idea that paying them to not commit crimes, that obviously is an unfortunate aspect of it, but the mayor's committed to what the mayor's committed to.
Through, before you go quickly, let's switch gears just for a second because it's really important. We just heard from Governor Hogan and U.S. Attorney from Maryland, Eric Barron, that they're going to start going after gun traffickers. This is something that the mayor and others have said is fueling the gun violence in the city of Baltimore. Based on what you heard the U.S. Attorney say, what are your thoughts about whether this might work?
Look, I think this is a really important dimension to the crime fight. It can't be the only thing. You can't say we're going after the gun traffickers, but we're going to turn a blind eye to the people that are actually using the guns. There are shooters and killers and carjackers and robbers that are using guns in Baltimore City every day. So you got to enforce those laws too. But I think the U.S. Attorney and the governor of Maryland, frankly, like they have for the last couple of years, are trying to do their part to help buoy the situation in Baltimore.
All right, through Vignaraja, thanks for coming in with your thoughts on that and the squeegee collaborative plan. We appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And making headlines right now, the Attorney General for Washington, D.C. files a consumer protection lawsuit against the Washington Commanders over Dan Snyder, the NFL, and Commissioner Roger Goodell. Carl Racine says that the league and team colluded to deceive D.C. residents about an investigation into the organization's workplace culture, but it's unclear the damages being sought. However, Racine, for his part, says the law does provide for fines up to $5,000 per lie. He also said there will be more news about a parallel investigation into the team's finances and withholding money from season ticket holders next week. Those are accusations, of course. And conspiracy theorist Alex Jones and his company have been ordered to pay another $473 million to families and an FBI agent for calling the 2012 Sandy Hook school shooting and massacre a hoax. Now, that adds to a nearly $1 billion verdict a jury imposed last month. The InfoWars host is vowing to appeal the case and says the trial has been unfair and an assault on free speech.
In your consumer alert today, the rate of inflation slowed down last month. October's consumer price index was up 7.7% compared to last year's prices, according to a government report. That is the smallest year-over-year increase since January. A different index called core inflation, which excludes food and energy prices, rose 6.3% in the past 12 months.
Twitter, Meta, and Microsoft have announced job cuts in a matter of weeks, and they're not the only ones.
That's right. Dee Gatton has a look at what's happening and what it could mean for our economy.
The tech industry is estimated to be worth trillions of dollars. Experts tell me these massive layoffs at big tech companies mark a turning point for the industry. Professor of Management Dr. Christopher Kays says there have been sky-high expectations for growth in the past couple of years. Big companies like Twitter staffed up to meet demands. Now companies haven't achieved the growth, they don't have the funding, and are slashing jobs. At a lot of these firms, he notes reduced advertising spending, which is something these firms depend on. On the other side, real people losing their jobs. Microsoft had much smaller layoffs than other companies, but experienced them nonetheless. I spoke to Union Palenches, who works there, who knows people who were impacted.
I know someone who got laid off at Microsoft and was rehired on a different team. So there's products that aren't working. They have to cut a whole product or a whole organization. And so they lay them off, but it doesn't mean that they don't want the employees. It's just that maybe that product's not working.
So these jobs will be redistributed to other areas. And so in some ways, it's going to take pressure off, say, for example, the Federal Reserve, who is really looking to lower the number of job openings out there. So what we'll probably see is a decrease in the number of job openings in the next couple of months.
The latest numbers show employers added more than 200,000 jobs in October. But Palencia's worries about hiring freezes impacting people's ability to find work. Meantime, Kay says in the months to come, you could see some level of layoffs in tech spilling over into other industries. He says you could see people laid off moving to other sectors, such as manufacturing. In fact, the U.S. Department of Labor notes in 2022 alone, the manufacturing sector added more than 300,000 new jobs. Reporting for the National Desk, I'm Dee Dee Gatton.
Now that Governor Hogan is leaving office in Maryland, many are wondering what's next. Coming up, we look at what the governor's political future could look like once he leaves office.
And as the remnants of Nicole move our way, we're going to have some increasing clouds overnight into tomorrow, and then the rain moves in. I'm going to let you know how much we're going to see and when we could even get some severe weather out of it. That's all tracking in my Weather Authority forecast.
With a clearer picture of winners and losers now emerging from the midterm elections, the lessons learned will begin to inform the decisions of those who may take the stage and run for the White House, especially among Republicans. Among those seemingly edging closer, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan and an anti-Trump Republican. Brad Bell with our Sinclair sister station has that story.
Outgoing term-limited Maryland Governor Larry Hogan has been hinting at a presidential run for more than 4 years. At times, such as when he visited the Iowa State Fair in August, he's looked very much like a candidate, all the while claiming he hasn't yet decided. Now, he says the results of the midterm elections offer encouraging signs.
We were wondering if there was a lane for my kind of politics. You know, I've got the most successful governor in America, but it still was a little bit outside of where most of the party was. I think that may have changed yesterday. I think the lane has broadened considerably.
Hogan has positioned himself as a centrist, a re-elected Republican governor in a firmly blue state with an approval rating of around 70%. He's won bipartisan praise for his handling of the pandemic. He's talked tough on crime, has been anti-tax and spend, but has mostly avoided hot-button social issues. He's also been anti-Trump, and the former president has called Hogan a terrible governor. Hogan now says that doesn't seem to matter as much as it did last week.
Nearly all of the kind of strongest MAGA candidates all lost nearly everywhere in the country, and it should have been a huge red wave because of the failures of the Biden administration. It is a real strong lesson for the Republican Party that continuing to double down on failure is not a long-term plan for success. And there's no question I'm going to continue to be a part of the debate and the discussion, and I'm going to continue to do everything I can to get the country and the Republican Party back on the right track.
Now, when asked directly if he's going to run for president, Governor Hogan continues to say what he has said all along, that there will be no announcement until his term ends in January. In Annapolis, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
All right. Well, even with unseasonal temperatures going on right now, Maryland state transportation officials are looking ahead to winter. The State Highway Administration revealed today that they're working with a $76 million budget for snow. With that budget, they are fully stocked with state-of-the-art supplies and technology to monitor roadway conditions, including 390,000 tons of rock salt, 1.7 million gallons of salt brine. In fact, MDOT says they have a dedicated team to help keep Marylanders safe all winter long.
Our team is dedicated to keeping roads open and clearing them as quickly as possible, and they work outside 24/7 during the harshest weather events when most people are inside staying warm.
State officials say they have almost 3,000 pieces of equipment ready to tackle the winter season. By the way, they want you to keep that number, pound 77, in mind. That's how to get roadside assistance during the winter months. So, Jonathan, I was thinking about this. Another nice day out there today. We'll have to see what the weather brings, but hopefully we won't have a, too harsh of a winter.
Yeah, if you go on our website, actually, we have our full winter forecast. We put it out on Monday. And interestingly enough, we were just talking about that brine mixture that we make here in Baltimore. And we spoke to the folks that actually make that brine mixture. And we got a tour of the facility, and that's on our YouTube page.
Excellent.
So go ahead and, go to the Fox.
We want people to check that out.
Check it out. Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's interesting how they have this whole big facility just dedicated to building that brine. So anyway, let's get back to the almost like summer season, right? We're talking tropical weather, and tropical storm actually was Hurricane Nicole as it made a landfall in Florida. Now a tropical storm. It's still over northern Florida, but it's making a turn northbound, and eventually we're going to get some of the impacts around here. Rain and thunderstorms tomorrow. Those storms, the potentially severe ones with maybe even an isolated tornado chance, that would be tomorrow afternoon. But tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon, they're going to be wet. Could have some gusty winds, too, 20, 35 miles an hour. There could be a window there late tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening as the storm's remnants, the center of them, come closest by. And occasional downpours also on and off all day tomorrow. HD radar showing the swirling system still. The center just now kind of right over the extreme northeastern portion of the Gulf of Mexico. What you see on the western side, this yellow and green, is kind of a more just uniform heavy rain. On the eastern side is where you get the winds out of the south, and that's where you get the unstable atmosphere, and it kind of lends to these feeder bands, if you will, of thunderstorms. That's the zone of the storm that we're going to be in as the center kind of passes off to our west. You see it's a tropical storm still now. We've got the nice weather near 70 this afternoon. The clouds are now beginning to move in ahead of the circulation, but it's been a nice day thus far. Continuation of the good weather we've had for the past several days, but the heavy rain, the high winds, as it diminishes and gets picked up by a cold front, all of that going to get shoved northbound. Notice this thing's remnants by tomorrow midday. The impacts start getting here tomorrow morning, and the heaviest rain north and west. But we will see about a ½ inch to 1.5 inches of rain perhaps out of all of this through tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. Marginal risk, or a 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather as well. Again, there could be an outside chance of a spin-up tornado or some gusty storms. That is not out of the question. Right now, 68. The clouds are increasing. Behind all this, wow, temperatures take a dive, and we're going to see some much colder air move in here as well. Timing things out. Well, it's still mild overnight tonight into early tomorrow. Notice the showers by about 4:30 a.m. through the morning commute. On and off rain tomorrow. Some of the reds and yellows, that could be some of those stronger storms in the mix, especially tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. And it finally moves out of here into Saturday, a much better looking day, although there could be a spot shower where it's 66. That high probably early in the day. And after that, boy, the bottom falls out. Highs only in the 40s and 50s all the way through the rest of the 7-day forecast.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Coming up at 5 o'clock on Fox 45, squeegee bans at major city intersections, community outreach efforts, and workforce training. We break down the city's new plan to address the squeegee crisis.
A new report with some alarming statistics. I'm Liz Bonus. Why we are dying of things other than COVID-19 right now. We explain just ahead.
Deaths are higher than expected since COVID-19 began from some chronic conditions that healthcare experts say should not be killing us. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains what's behind the disturbing trend.
Hey there, hello to you. Researchers say they aren't exactly sure why, but deaths from chronic illnesses such as diabetes, liver disease, and even some health concerns usually early and easily treated are higher than expected when it comes to deaths compared to before the pandemic began. The good news, one simple step can help turn this trend around.
In my 20s, where I thought was invincible and shouldn't be worried about anything, I had some worry.
Jennifer Buck learned that step early on in her health when a routine test and the analysis of it led to a diagnosis of cervical cancer. It is regularly seeing your primary care doctor.
For me, I've got to stay healthy, and I got to catch things so that if there is something wrong, we can do something about it, and it's not this overwhelming, intense process to get myself better again.
But even now, as a young mom, she admits the past few years she's missed a few appointments.
Because of COVID, honestly.
A new study shows she's likely not alone. A study of nearly 140,000 people that recently looked at excess deaths, not from COVID-19, found those deaths were up in conditions normally linked to old age, liver disease, and diabetes since March of 2020 when the pandemic began. It remained above the 5-year average for nearly half of this time until now.
Nice deep breath.
These are conditions Ohio's Tri-Health primary care doctor Jonathan Buck says are usually interrupted if your primary care doctor identifies risk factors early. It's all part of a push right now to turn this trend around nationwide called population health.
Population health is sort of the idea of, I guess, removing the idea of coming to the doctor when you're sick.
You see high blood pressure, high blood sugar levels, and many other numbers identified by your doctor let you know early something is wrong.
Most people, I think, don't realize that those are chronic conditions, and chronic conditions don't kill you today.
Instead, they shut down the body slowly unless they're identified by a provider who knows this isn't normal for you.
As I get to know you, I get to know you.
And that knowing you is what Dr. Buck says signals him to intervene and potentially help you save your own life. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Now back to you.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, police need your help. The latest on the investigation into a 13-year-old shot in Baltimore. And the mayor and Ivan Bates on the same page when it comes to the squeegee plan. His response to new details that we're learning today. After 4 months of waiting, the city's squeegee collaborative plan is here. The new details we're learning about the plan to protect drivers and squeegee kids and how it works.
A 13-year-old shot on city streets. Baltimore police now looking for a man, plus the calls for the public's help.
The governor-elect meets with the governor himself at the State House. The latest right now on Westmore's transition to the governor's mansion.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
The mayor announces his squeegee collaborative report. It comes 4 months after the mayor first formed the group and the days after police say a squeegee kid shot and killed Timothy Reynolds near the Inner Harbor.
Now, during that time, we've seen multiple examples of some squeegee kids assaulting drivers, damaging cars, and stealing money, according to drivers.
Here are the 3 big takeaways from today's announcement.
Squeegee kids will be banned from 6 major intersections. You can see them in red. It includes Light and Conway, where Timothy Reynolds was shot earlier this summer. And the mayor says there will be quick response teams to ensure no squeegee activity happens during that time.
The enforcement starts January 10th with 2 warnings before a citation. Outreach workers from city schools will work to get squeegee kids back into class, and drivers will also be held accountable for their behavior toward squeegee kids in these zones.
The city will be offering support services that the mayor is calling Earn and Learn. It will pay squeegee kids to participate in workforce training for up to 1 year, and squeegee kids will be required to commit to stop squeegee activity to get the money. But it's not clear how that will be enforced.
We have live team coverage of the Squeegee Collaborative recommendations. Maxine Stryker with reaction from incoming City State's Attorney Ivan Bates in a few minutes.
Our team coverage begins with Mackenzie Frost, who questioned city leaders about how the plan will be enforced and concerns about ensuring money isn't being wasted. Mackenzie?
Yeah, Mary and Kai, after months and months and months of hearing from this city talking about how those laws on the books targeting some of this squeegee activity will not be enforced, now we're seeing starting January 10th, squeegeeing will be banned from some of those high traffic known squeegee corners like you just mentioned. We know that that will be taking place up and down President Street at the intersection of Light and Conway, as well as Mount Royal and North Avenue right there off Interstate 83. One of the other ideas and recommendations from the Squeegee Collaborative is that Earn and Learn program, where these kids will be getting some money for some training programs. The mayor was quick to say that this is not a guaranteed income plan, rather, as he said repeatedly, an Earn and Learn program. But we question the city how they will ensure these kids are not actually double dipping.
How will you ensure that the people who are involved in these training programs don't go back out and squeegee? And then what happens if they do?
We ensure their success by not giving up on them, right? And I'm going to be honest with you. There are going to be some failures. That's why they will be connected with a credible mentor or a mentor, a navigator, who will be there through the hard times.
Just to be clear, are there any mechanisms in place in this plan right now that would require them to go through another round of training, or is there anything in place that would say you can't be a part of this program because you said you were going to? We're giving you this training and we're giving you this assistance, but you're still going out on the corners.
Yes. So yes, that actually is explicitly called out in the plan, where you have to commit to not squeegeeing or participating in squeegee activity. This is progressive discipline, right? And so when they do wrong, that's when we check them, and that's when we pull them back in. And so yes, you might lose your incentive, but that doesn't mean that you're going to lose an opportunity.
Now, we went through the Squeegee Collaborative plan, and it's still unclear just exactly how that process will play out. Mary and Kai?
Yeah, Mackenzie, what do we know about the citation aspect of this? And I kind of heard you alluding to that in your questioning.
Yeah, that is another big unknown in this, right? Especially when it comes down to what citation will be issued if the law itself isn't being enforced. It's something I asked the police commissioner, Michael Harrison, specifically about.
We're now developing protocols, policy, training, so that if and when we have to issue a citation, it would be for the law that's actually on the books about the squeegeeing. That's going to be disallowed. And, then it becomes a matter of what happens if they do it again.
I followed up with a spokesperson with BPD after this news conference to try and get some clarity about what exactly the law that would be enforced and therefore the people would be given a citation. BPD tells me that they're still working with the Squeegee Collaborative to really hammer out some of those details. So there's still a lot more questions, and we're expecting more information as this process unfolds. Live in Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, several city leaders joined Mayor Scott for the Squeegee Collaborative announcement today, including Police Commissioner Michael Harrison. As we saw, Mackenzie just talked with him. But one leader was noticeably absent, the next Baltimore City State's Attorney, Ivan Bates. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker continues our live team coverage with more on this. Maxine?
Well, Mary, we certainly expected to see Ivan Bates there at this press conference today with many other city leaders, especially since his office will play a large role when it comes to the accountability part of this plan. Now, Mayor Scott and Ivan Bates, they have not seen eye to eye on enforcement when it comes to squeegee kids in the past months. Bates telling Fox 45 News when he takes office, he supports the removal of squeegee kids from city streets, and that he did not believe the act was panhandling. We questioned the mayor about Bates' absence today.
Mr. Mayor, I noticed that the city's next top prosecutor isn't here. Is there a reason for that? How do you plan?
I was waiting on that, so I'll just say before you say it, ask the question. We have briefed State's Attorney Bates. He is in agreement. He and I, we talked specifically about, he asked some questions around what you guys call guaranteed income that we're talking about, earn and learn. Again, I'll say it 3 times so y'all remember, earn and learn, earn and learn, earn and learn. That it's about the way that we present it. There is no issue, there's no space between our new state's attorney and me on this issue. Don't try to create it. Don't try to spread this kind of hate and divisiveness between 2 black men. Baltimore is not going to stand for it.
Well, Maxine, you reached out to Ivan Bates today. What's his response to the plan and why he wasn't part of today's announcement?
Well, he did not say why he wasn't there or if he had been invited, instead sending us a statement saying in part that he will do his part to enforce the laws and support the mayor's Squeegee Collaborative, saying he's advocated for the enforcement of laws since the beginning of his candidacy that prohibit this type of behavior, which creates a danger for drivers. He says he's also recommended programs that provide positive resources for the squeegee workers and believes the mayor's plan does both as in a step in the right direction towards addressing this long-standing challenge that is facing the city. So for now, it does seem the pair are on the same page. The mayor insists they're in full agreement when it comes to this plan and that none of this came as a surprise to Bates today. Reporting live in Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Maxine. Fox 45 is demanding answers from City Council about today's Squeegee Collaborative report. We sent several questions asking, do you agree with the recommendations from the Squeegee Collaborative? What will you do to ensure the city follows through on recommendations in the plan? And how will you ensure, how will the city ensure squeegee kids receive financial support and will actually stop squeegeeing? And what is the city's long-term plan to deal with squeegee kids? So far, we haven't heard back.
We wanted you to join the conversation. Do you believe the squeegee plan will be fully implemented and work? So far, 96% of those who voted say no. You can vote right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote.
We have breaking news. A source confirms law enforcement found a gun today at Mervo High School in Baltimore. It is the 6th gun found in a Baltimore City school this year. A student was killed walking out of school in September at Mervo. This is a developing story, and we'll bring you more information as it becomes available. Baltimore police need your help to identify a man captured on surveillance in the shooting that left a 13-year-old girl critically injured. Alexa Ashwell joins us with those images. And Alexa, we understand that you personally spoke with the Police Commissioner Michael Harrison about the investigation.
Yes, Kai, the commissioner not ready to call this man a person of interest, but tells me they have yet to identify or locate him and need the public's help. Newly released images of a man the Baltimore Police Department is looking to identify as a 13-year-old girl clings to life at a nearby hospital. Today, officers returning to this liquor store near the corner of Fayette and Caroline Streets in southeast Baltimore, where early Monday evening, the commissioner says a suspect opened fire on a group of people surrounding a car in the parking lot. One of the bullets striking the 13-year-old girl in her head, the child, an innocent bystander. A man was also shot. His involvement, if any, unclear.
People have expressed that this is an area where drug sales often occur. Is that a motive in this shooting? And if so, what's being done to address that?
Well, it's unknown what the motive is, and so that's what detectives are working on in their investigation right now.
Commissioner Michael Harrison detailing the motive remains under investigation. People fed up over the violence.
People are angry, people are scared, but they're frustrated also.
And looking for more to be done. The commissioner pleading for the public to speak up and help them identify this man.
Are you able to take it a step further and call him a person of interest at this point?
Well, we are, number one, glad that we have that image. What we need is for anyone who recognizes him to please call us right away. We have not yet identified who he is officially. That's why it's so important for the community to give us a call Crime Stoppers anonymously.
And the teen remains in critical condition at an area hospital. Anyone with any information on this case is asked to call police. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Making headlines now, a fire rips through 7 row homes in South Baltimore. The fire started around 9 this morning on Sedley Street, right by Westport Elementary School. 3 of the homes were vacant. 4 were occupied. Officials say there was a partial collapse in the back of one of the vacant homes. We're told crews knew that the homes were vacant and did not enter them because of Code X-ray program. It's a program created to warn firefighters of vacant homes after the deaths of 3 firefighters earlier this year. We spoke with a neighbor who's frustrated by the number of vacant buildings in the area.
The city is a menace. The city is the menace to this neighborhood. All they ever do is tear houses down around here.
Well, the cause of the fire remains under investigation. No one was hurt. Right now, Baltimore has about 14,000 vacant homes and buildings. 900 of them were added this year. The city has torn down 225 vacant buildings this year as well.
We're tracking Tropical Storm Nicole tonight. This is what conditions look like early this morning in Florida, where that storm made landfall as a hurricane. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers is here right now with the latest on how this will impact us here in Maryland. Jonathan?
Yeah, guys, the nearest rain bands with that you see on the radar behind me up toward North Carolina now and starting to move northbound as well. So this coming on shore, the first hurricane hitting the U.S. in November in 37 years. The last one happening was way back in 1985. That was Kate. Came in right around Mexico Beach, Florida. If you remember, Hurricane Michael hit there a couple of years ago as a Category 4, Category 5 storm. Now, this continues to move its way north, just west of Gainesville. It's tropical storm still, but it will weaken quickly. And you see here, by the time we get to Friday midday and we see the effects of this heading toward us, I think we're going to have a much weaker storm. But still for tomorrow, there is a potential here for tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, some gusty winds as well as some heavy rain. There could even be an outside chance of an isolated tornado. There is a marginal risk, a 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather, and also could see a solid at least inch, maybe 2 inches of rain around here. I'm going to track it hour by hour in the future scan coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Thank you, Jonathan. Put the power of the Weather Authority Storm Center in your hands. Download the free WBFF Weather Authority app for your smartphone. Use our powerful Doppler radar to follow storms to your street. Go to your app store and search for WBFF to get started.
Federal, state, and local law enforcement unite to stop gun trafficking. We break down the new plan to fight crime in Baltimore. And what comes next for those with marijuana convictions, how legalization in Maryland could wipe their crimes off the books.
Well, the results in the midterms change the president's approach to inflation. We look ahead at how the federal government will approach cutting prices.
Governor-elect Wes Moore beginning the process of transitioning into power in Annapolis. Today, he met with current Governor Larry Hogan to go over his plans to take office. Brad Bell joins us live now with how it all went in Annapolis today. Brad?
Well, it was a lot of smiles today. Look, on election night, Wes Moore told his big party, tonight we celebrate, tomorrow we get to work. He meant it. He said he was going to move very, very quickly, and today he announced his transition team and, yes, also engaged in some significant symbolism with the governor. It's been a busy day for Governor-elect Wes Moore in College Park this afternoon, naming his transition team, which will be chaired by Lieutenant Governor-elect Aruna Miller and include Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks and former Howard County Exec Ken Ullman. He also met for an hour at the State House in Annapolis with Governor Larry Hogan. The current and future governors then walking down the grand staircase together, staging a scene aimed at showing their teams, and they will be working closely together in the months leading up to Moore's inauguration, January 21st.
Our entire administration is going to do everything we possibly can to not only ensure the peaceful transition of power, but to make sure that we can help them get up to speed with this, whatever information they want.
You know, our teams have already been working closely. And we're already seeing not just how important this is and how seriously the Hogan administration is taking this, but also this is the way it should be. That you know, when the governor is saying that we're going to have a smooth and an orderly transition.
So the governor's saying that he's also given his personal cell number to Mr. Moore and that he can call him anytime. He also says he'll have the Moore family down to Government House, the governor's mansion here, to have a tour and help them get settled in. Now, one point of levity at the briefing today, Governor Hogan was asked, who did you vote for governor? Did you vote for Mr. Moore? Because we know he wasn't going to vote for Dan Cox, the Republican. Governor Hogan still not revealing it. He said that's why we have secret ballots. In Annapolis, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
All right. Well, around here, we can all vote for, unfortunately, impacts from Nicole heading up the coast, and it looks like it's not going to be such a wonderful day tomorrow. We do have a weather alert out now for it. We have storms starting, especially tomorrow afternoon's commute, but rain on and off really kind of all day, and that's going to mean some problems for the commutes. Gusty winds. I don't think it's going to be anything hugely damaging, but 20 to 35 miles an hour, especially, say, right towards a p.m. commute into the early evening. That's when we could also have some stronger thunderstorms roll through, at least isolated stuff. And as is the case with landfalling tropical systems, although this is far removed from landfall, which happened this morning in Florida, and it's going to be over land for a long time, still, there could be some spin in the atmosphere for an isolated, we're talking a very isolated tornado, but the chance is there, and occasional downpours. That's going to be a problem as well. It won't be flooding, but it could be blinding. And you see here, this storm is kind of bisected. Kind of draw a line right through the middle. On the western side is where you have this kind of rain, kind of more of a steady wintertime or fall time rain, but it's heavy. And then on the eastern side, you see there are a lot of breaks, but there are these bands of thunderstorms, what we call feeder bands coming in. And that's where you have the what we call instability on the eastern side of these tropical systems. Still a tropical storm, but it is weakening. We're in the nice weather, but the clouds moving in. Eastern side of the storm with those feeder bands and the kind of unstable weather with some of the thunderstorms and even a spin-up tornado, well, that's going to be the part that comes over us. All picked up by a cold front out to the west, and that's where we're going to center most of the heavy rain. Notice tomorrow midday, this is already just a kind of a remnant low, but even still, as it moves north tomorrow into Saturday, we center the heaviest rain north and west of us, but we get into some of those thunderstorms. So there could be a ½ inch to maybe an 1.5 inches of rain around here, which we can handle because we have seen a fairly dry fall. Marginal or level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. The worst of the weather will be down to our south. But during the afternoon, heavy rain, gusty winds. And again, there is that isolated spin-up tornado not out of the question. So we are going to go under weather alert here for tomorrow. 64 degrees, winds out of the east at 6 now. The sun setting under clouds increasing on the Toyota Eastern Harbor Skycam. Behind that cold front that's going to pick this thing up. Look, we go from 73 in Dallas, 52 in Oklahoma City to teens in the Intermountain West. We're on the warm side of the country for now, but once the system comes through, we're going to drag in that colder air. In terms of rain, there you go. Tomorrow morning's commute, on and off. Tomorrow afternoon, more rain. And there could even be an isolated thunderstorm, a strong one in there too. And then on Saturday, it all gets out of here. But boy, does some colder air move in beyond that. Spot shower left over Saturday, 50 for a high on Sunday. Look at those upper 40s, lows in the 30s early next week.
Stopping crime from flowing in and out of Baltimore. The governor's new plan to stop the violence in and around the city.
With Election Day behind us and the pressure easing a bit, President Biden offering a more daunting assessment of America's financial woes. I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with a closer look.
Many voters called inflation their top concern in the midterm elections. Now a post-election admission by the president when it comes to America's big worry about how to pay the bills. Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman has details.
As a large number of votes are still being tabulated, another set of numbers are also under close observation: the nation's economic struggles after midterm elections. The president just months ago signed the massive $400+ billion Inflation Reduction Act aimed at shrinking the deficit and America's everyday cost of living, with assurances it would work. But now that Election Day has passed, perhaps a more raw, open assessment.
What I can't do is I can't guarantee that we're going to be able to get rid of inflation.
For the past year, with Democrats trying to defend control of Congress, the administration has downplayed inflation's overall drag.
We have achieved a historic recovery through an extraordinarily unprecedented economic moment. The president has consistently noted that the primary drivers of inflation are the pandemic and Putin's invasion of Ukraine.
Treasury Secretary Yellen calling it transitory, implying temporary and short term. Now saying the struggle could have a longer timeline, and Biden warns could become increasingly difficult post-election should Republicans wield more power.
I'm not going to support any Republican proposal that's going to make inflation worse. For example, The voters don't want to pay higher prescription costs for drugs. And I'm not going to walk away from the historic commitments we just made to take on the climate crisis.
While inflation eased more than expected in October, the significantly higher costs on food, energy, and gas still Americans' top concerns.
First thing we're going to do is make sure an economy that's strong.
With more Republicans heading to the Hill and it likely that Democrats are no longer the sole party in power, the president may be more frank in talking inflation and possibly, too, spreading the blame. At the Capitol Hill Bureau, Scott Thuman, Fox 45 News.
An effort to count 50,000 mail-in ballots is underway. The results decide who leads Anne Arundel County. The latest on the race for county executive there. The governor launching a new plan to crack down on Baltimore crime. How he hopes patrolling nearby counties will help protect the city. Governor Larry Hogan announcing a new plan to crack down on crime flowing in and out of Baltimore.
The collaboration between federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies hopes to stop violence in the city and limit the crime moving into other areas.
Governor Hogan says the task force will use new intelligence gathering tools to help patrols along key locations on Route 140, Route 26, Baltimore National Pike, and Route 2, though it is unclear exactly where these and when these patrols will begin. The efforts focused on stopping gang and criminal activity going in and out of the city.
The task force will be made up of officers from Maryland State Police, the Transit Administration, and the Anne Arundel and Baltimore County Police Departments, along with efforts to stop the flow of crime in the area. U.S. Attorney Eric Barron plans to increase supervision of those on parole and probation through a knock and talk program. The state deployed teams of officers and social workers to visit parolees' homes to make sure they're following the terms of their release.
We hope and expect that you're in compliance, and we're there to help. But if you're not in compliance, you will be held accountable.
Mackenzie Frost joins us live right now with more on the governor's announcement and Eric Barron's announcement. Mackenzie?
Kai, we just heard some of the two-pronged approach to tackle some of violent crime coming in and out of Baltimore City. Now, the leaders today saying that this is being done in partnership with those leaders in Baltimore City, but no one from Baltimore City was at that announcement earlier this morning. The governor also singling out incoming state's attorney Ivan Bates as someone who he says has a plan to tackle violent crime.
It is my honor to introduce Governor Larry Hogan.
Working with the federal government and Governor Larry Hogan rolling out a surge plan to curb Baltimore's crime. U.S. Attorney for Maryland Eric Barron sending a strong message to criminals coming through Charm City.
If you intend to drive with guns or drugs on a Maryland road, you better think twice.
The federal force raising questions about these plans becoming reality, especially in a city with a mayor at the helm utilizing a holistic approach to crime. And looking at the homicide and non-fatal shooting numbers outpacing this time last year, indicating the mayor's efforts may not be working. Do you think that this plan and these efforts will work long term if you have a mayor and administration who seems to be taking a different approach to violence and crime in Baltimore City?
Well, I mentioned earlier that, we've had great meetings with the incoming state's attorney, Ivan Bates, who, much like the U.S. attorney and all of us standing up here, I think has really pledged to take the violent crime seriously, and I think that's an improvement and a step in the right direction.
You said Ivan Bates has been briefed on this. Do you anticipate those relationships continuing, and do you see him serving as perhaps a more willing participant and partner in these efforts moving forward?
I do get the impression that he's just as focused as the rest of us about trying to do something about the violent crime in Baltimore City.
Barron says everyone is working together to curb the violence, but in Baltimore that doesn't always appear to be the case. What is the public supposed to do or think when they see sometimes officers standing in the city watching crime happen and not do anything about it?
I would beg to differ, and I believe that all of our law enforcement partners, local, state, and federal, are taking it seriously.
I whipped out $2 from a billfold. I never thought that he would grab my wallet and run like a little punk.
Fox 45 News speaking with a Baltimore County physician coming into the city for dinner just a few weeks ago, stumped by a squeegee kid, becoming another victim of a crime. When the physician says he spoke with the Baltimore City police officer who was right there when the robbery allegedly happened, he says nothing was done.
What, are you going to catch this guy? You're not going to catch him. And nobody's bothered to call me. It's a joke.
As Mayor Scott continues to not allow the police department to enforce certain laws, the ones especially related to the squeegee kids. The federal government, though, not playing games about cracking down, especially on gun violence.
Those who turn to guns to solve problems must be deterred by any legal means necessary.
Something plaguing Baltimore City. Now, Fox 45 News asked Mayor Brandon Scott's office if he had a comment or reaction to this new surge of federal resources coming into Baltimore City, but the Scott administration, again, refusing to answer those questions. Live in Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
A man was shot in the neck in Baltimore last night. According to the Baltimore police, the 54-year-old victim took himself to the hospital just after 10 o'clock or just before 10 o'clock last night. Officers say he was driving on Amberley Avenue near Frederick Avenue when he was shot by someone wearing all dark clothing. The victim is in serious but stable condition. Anyone with information about the shooting should contact Baltimore police.
Killings and non-fatal shootings are both up in the city compared to last year. So far, 293 people have been killed in Baltimore. That is 3 more than this time in 2021. 627 people have survived being shot this year compared to 619 last year. Well, a local race that is still undecided tonight, the battle for Anne Arundel County Executive. Republican Jessica Harris currently leading incumbent Democrat County Executive Stuart Pittman by nearly 11,000 votes. The canvass of nearly 50,000 mail-in ballots is officially now underway, but we are likely still several days away from learning the outcomes in some of the races on the ballot. Fox 45's Amy Simpson is live with what voters need to know as we wait this out. Amy?
Yes, Mary. So today was the first day of mail-in ballot counting in Anne Arundel County. And the whole process was looking like a well-oiled machine at the Board of Elections in Glen Burnie. Take a look inside the room today as 50 bipartisan teams processed thousands of those mail-in ballots. They're expected to count 15,000 ballots each day, but more than 49,000 of those mail-in ballots have been returned, meaning we're in for at least 3.5 days of this mail-in ballot counting. The Board of Elections says there will be no vote counting tomorrow because of the Veterans Day holiday, and the canvass will resume on Monday. One of the main races we're following as this vote count continues is that race for Anne Arundel County Executive. And right now, incumbent Democratic County Executive Stuart Pittman trails Republican challenger Jessica Hare by about 11,000 votes. But earlier this week, both candidates expressed optimism that they'll be the one to win.
We're just going to wait for every vote to be counted, and we're excited to see it.
I'm pretty comfortable that that we'll end up on top, but it may not be till next week.
And Amy, what other races are we waiting on results from the mail-in ballot specifically?
Yeah, so in addition to the Anne Arundel County Executives race, we're aware of at least one other race that's really hanging in the balance right now until these mail-in ballots are all counted. And that other race is for the House of Delegates in District 12B. Elections data shows that after early voting and Election Day voting, those two candidates are just 7 votes apart. We're live tonight. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Well, the balance of power in Washington, D.C. is unknown until all the ballots are counted. Those results will play a major role in determining the financial direction of the country moving forward. Megan Gillen speaks with a taxpayer advocate.
While we are still waiting to see who will control the Senate, it looks like Republicans have taken over the House this midterm election. Here to weigh in on this balance of power and what this means for you, David Williams with the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. David, let me ask you this. We have the Republicans controlling the House. Let's say they actually make it and control the Senate. What does that mean for President Biden?
It's going to be tougher for President Biden because then you have the Senate, which you still have to overcome the filibuster, but there are still things that can happen. And remember, Republicans taking over means that they're taking over the committee structure, so the oversight, the investigations. And so oversight is one thing, investigating is another, and getting too crazy with impeaching certain cabinet members doesn't really help the country.
Let's break it down to Maryland. Democrats now control both the governor's mansion and also the state legislature. What does that mean for our viewers, for taxpayers?
No checks and balances in Maryland government now. You have Democrats controlling everything.
Well, the candidates who won during this midterm election will officially take office in January. I'm Megan Gillen, Fox 45 News.
Maryland voters have spoken, with just over 65% of you voting to legalize marijuana on Tuesday.
That's right. The new law means starting next year, a small amount of cannabis will be decriminalized for those 21 and older.
But what about those with prior drug convictions? Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has more. Rebecca?
Yeah, guys, this new law will do more than just making it legal to have cannabis moving forward. It could also clear past convictions for hundreds of thousands of Marylanders. Today, I spoke with Angus Derbyshire, a local lawyer who was volunteering at an expungement clinic put on by Maryland Legal Aid in West Baltimore. He tells me the revised code will automatically clear all simple possession charges when it's the only charge. That will be completed by July 1st of 2024. However, if you're eager to clear your charges right away, you can also file a petition on the Maryland Judiciary's expungement page for just $30. Those with multiple charges or an intent to distribute charge will also be able to file petitions, although their criminal records will not be cleared automatically. Derbyshire tells me that this change will be life-changing for many.
If we can get those off people's records, it's going to open doors. It's amazing the number of people that will walk out here today and walk out at all of our clinics who say, now I feel like I can go out and I can get that nursing license, or I can get that job that I've been looking for, my CDL. So it really kind of opens new doors and avenues, not just for that person, but for generations afterwards.
Now, Maryland Legal Aid is currently hosting about 3 to 4 of these expungement clinics a week. If you're looking to take advantage of one of them, you can find the details for all these events in this story on our website at foxbaltimore.com. Reporting live in Baltimore, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
A better than expected inflation report giving Wall Street a boost, but what does the bigger picture look like for everyday Americans? I'm Atrel Nashar with one expense you can't live without that's only getting more expensive.
And here comes the rain, and it's with Nicole. Yes, the remnants of the hurricane that hit Florida this morning, and it's going to be a mess tomorrow. Could even have some severe weather. I'm going to let you know how long that's going to last and what comes behind it. I'm going to time it all out hour by hour on my Weather Authority forecast.
New inflation data paints an optimistic picture, but in this Inflation Nation report, budgets are still getting squeezed. National correspondent Atrel Nashar explains experts are trying to predict which way the economy is headed.
A sigh of relief and renewed hopes inflation may have peaked came Thursday in what some economists call the best inflation report of the year. For the first time since April, both measures of the Consumer Price Index, headline inflation, meaning prices for all items, and core inflation, which doesn't factor in volatile food and energy prices, came down year over year.
The light at the end of the tunnel is growing bigger and bigger and bigger.
That light being what economists call a soft landing, returning to normal inflation levels without slowing the economy into a recession. But more data is needed to tell us if Thursday's report is the beginning of the end of the worst inflationary period in decades or an anomaly before prices spike again.
Really volatile groups of food and energy still incredibly high over last year. And for consumers that are out there wanting to go shopping for Thanksgiving, for example, they're going to still feel it.
Grocery prices still 12.4% higher than last year, many having to cut back.
Instead of buying gallons of milk, I get the little half a gallons. And, you know, instead of getting a dozen of eggs, I get a half a dozen.
This Thanksgiving, turkey may be out of the question for some. It's about 17% more expensive than last year. And avian flu compounding already high prices. This Alabama food bank seeking alternatives for the 9,000 people they plan to feed.
We're going to be serving more chickens than ever before. We also were fortunate to be able to secure some hams.
Another source of persistent pain is the cost of housing.
The shelter is up in its highest level since 1990, and we've repeatedly heard that from a lot of Americans that have said rent is too high.
And mortgage rates are likely to keep rising with more interest rate hikes from the Federal Reserve, members of which are no doubt encouraged by this inflation report, but still have a long road ahead to get inflation down to their 2% target. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar reporting.
Well, we're tracking Tropical Storm Nicole tonight. That storm has weakened to a tropical depression. We have team coverage of the path of the storm tonight. Meteorologist Jonathan Myers in studio with the remnants and how it could impact us. But first, Floriana Boardman from our Sinclair sister station in South Carolina has more on the conditions there.
Now, if you take a look at the ocean behind me, you can see just how strong those waves are. Now, there's a lot of beach behind me right now, but earlier today, that water was making its way all the way up to these dunes right here, with beach erosion being a major concern. Beach erosion has been a major concern for the town of Folly Beach as a second major storm impacts the Low Country. Mayor Tom Goodwin tells us he expects plenty of beach erosion and has been seeing it the past few days. Once the storm passes during low tide, they're going to survey how much erosion was done and then work with the Army Corps of Engineers to combat what erosion took place. Now, the conditions weren't bad enough to keep people from checking out the beach and some surfers from riding those waves. Reporting in Folly Beach, I'm Floriana Boardman.
All right, here's Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers with more on what is a tropical storm right now.
Yes, it is not a tropical depression yet. It's almost. It's
okay,
very close. It's only 40 miles an hour now and on the way down. So that's good news for us. I mean, the weaker this is, the farther south, the better it is for us by the time it gets here. But nonetheless, we are going to be watching some local impacts from Nicole. And in fact, the impacts may be significant enough that we're going to put out a weather alert for tomorrow, especially due to the timing here. We're going to have some heavy rain potential on and off through the morning commute and into the afternoon. And some storms could get in the mix, too, especially during the afternoon. Some gusty winds as we head toward and just after sunset tomorrow. So a good maybe 2, 3, 4 hour period where we could get some gusts up to about, say, 20 to 35 miles an hour as the center of the storm moves closest, or the center of the remnants moves closest to us, to our north and west. An isolated, very outside chance of a spin-up tornado, so don't really hang your hat on that. But there is, again, with any landfalling tropical system like we've seen here, that potential, especially on the eastern side where we're going to be, and occasional downpours. That's going to be a threat as well, so some blinding downpours of potential. Dothan, Alabama to Tallahassee, that's kind of the closest spots to your center of circulation, just north and west of Gainesville in Florida now. And continues to move northbound. You see the edge of the feeder bands. And again, we're going to be on the eastern side here. So kind of this quadrant where you see some of the thunderstorms moving in. That's as far north now as North Carolina and continuing to push northbound. Our clouds already, I noticed a line coming in this afternoon, increasing here in Maryland. The heavy rain and the high winds gradually diminishing. At least the winds are. Still a good amount of heavy rain. And this front isn't going to really help matters as it pushes eastbound and combines with the system, which is going to draw it. Now, the good news is quickly, but draw it northerly, draw it northbound into the next 24 hours. Becomes a remnant by the midday tomorrow. And then we see our potential of heavy rain around here. Heaviest rain in the yellow. That could be several 2 to 4 inches of rain into the Alleghenies. But around here, it's about a ½ inch to 1.5 inches of rain. And then also the 1 out of 5 marginal risk of severe weather. The biggest risk is going to be south of us. I think heavy rain, some downpours, biggest threat here during the afternoon commute into the evening. Could see some gusty winds and maybe a spin-up tornado is not out of the question. But again, it's a slim chance. Mile 1 Towson Cam, now the sun is set. Cloudy skies in Towson. 64 winds out of the east at 6 ahead of the center of that circulation down to our south. On top of this, there's also the issue with some minor coastal flooding. Tides running about a foot to a foot and a half above average. We do have a coastal flood advisory in effect for the area near Annapolis. Going to see some flooding in the city dock parking lot with 6:50 high tide running up to about a foot and a half above average. Now, in terms of the cloud cover, that will thicken overnight. Notice the wee hours of tomorrow morning, there are some showers rolling in on and off. There could even be that yellow or orange or red during the midday and afternoon. That's that isolated thunderstorm. That could be a stronger one in there. And then as we work into Saturday morning early, this stuff's already gone. Now, later in the day Saturday, there could be another return to a shower as the actual cold front comes through, 66, and much, much cooler. Lows in the 30s, highs only in the upper 40s to near 50. Real reality check into early next week.
Well, even with unseasonal temperatures right now, Maryland State transportation officials are looking ahead to winter. The State Highway Administration revealed that they're working with $76 million budget. With that budget, they are fully stocked right now. With that budget, they're fully stocked with state supplies and technology to monitor roadway conditions, including 390,000 tons of rock salt and 1.7 million gallons of brine. MDOT says that they have a dedicated team to help keep Marylanders safe all winter long.
Our team is dedicated to keeping roads open and clearing them as quickly as possible, and they work outside 24/7 during the harshest weather events when most people are inside staying warm.
Well, state officials say they have almost 3,000 pieces of equipment ready to tackle the winter season. And they want you to keep this number handy, pound 77 in mind, just in case you need roadside assistance. Coming up at 6, Baltimore Squeegee Collaborative releases its plan, the changes that will happen and when they'll take effect. John Means misses the majority of the 2022 season after undergoing Tommy John surgery, the big step in the O's getting him back on the field.
The Washington Commanders organization, it's a complete dumpster fire. From claims of a toxic workplace environment to alleged sexual assault, now Washington, D.C.'s Attorney General Karl Racine is suing the team Owner Daniel Snyder, the NFL and League Commissioner Roger Goodell for colluding to deceive D.C. residents.
We've interviewed numerous witnesses, including former team employees who witnessed and experienced the conduct at issue. We reviewed thousands of internal documents produced by the Commanders and the National Football League, including emails. What we found, what the evidence overwhelmingly established, what we will prove in court, is clear wrongdoing and violations of D.C. residents' consumer rights.
Switching gears, when John Means is healthy, he's one of the best pitchers on the Orioles staff, but that wasn't the case in 2022. Staying healthy was the issue. The Birds lefty underwent Tommy John surgery in early May, ending his season shortly after it began. About 3 weeks ago, Means resumed throwing, which is a big step in his recovery. Today, the O's reinstated him off the 60-day IL, and they hope to have high hopes for him again in 2023. Jonathan?
Well, Rocco, a quick look at your in-depth weekend forecast. This is the remnants of Nicole moving through on Friday. Notice 7 a.m. through 5:30, just a mess. Some of the yellows, the reds in there. There could even be some stronger storms and even some severe weather potentially all the way through the evening. Then look, Saturday, spot shower. That's about it. And Sunday, a good-looking day. But boy, is it going to get colder again. That mess from Nicole Friday, and then the cooling trend, only 50 for a high Sunday.
New tonight on Fox 45 News at 6 o'clock, Nicole leads to a surprising discovery on Florida's beaches, the American history unearthed. Several Virginia drivers report water in their gas tanks that causes thousands of dollars in damage, where the state says that water is coming from.
Baltimore's squeegee collaborative plan is here. How city leaders hope the new guidance will protect both drivers and squeegee kids. A transition of power coming to Annapolis. Fox 45 News takes you inside today's meeting between Governor Larry Hogan and Governor-elect Wes Moore.
And Nicole making a Florida East Coast landfall earlier today and now making the push up the coast. I'm going to let you know what impacts we're going to see around here tomorrow, hour by hour. My Weather Authority forecast.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
We're going to be putting things up to telling folks so that everyone knows, starting on these days, this is what's going to be happening, and that everybody, drivers, folks who squeegee, all will be held accountable.
Mayor Brandon Scott lays out the Squeegee Collaborative's plan today after a series of violent incidents on Baltimore street corners and those intersections. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. It has been 4 months since the mayor formed the collaborative in the days after police say a squeegee kid shot and killed Timothy Reynolds near the Inner Harbor. And here's what we know so far. Enforcement will be based on a 3-strike system. Outreach workers from city schools will work to get squeegee kids back in class, and drivers will also be held accountable. The city will be offering support services that the mayor is calling Earn and Learn. Those services will pay squeegee kids to participate in workforce training for up to 1 year. There will be enforcement, 6 enforcement zones. They are highlighted in red there. We'll take a closer look at those zones in a moment. But we begin with Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost. Mackenzie, you questioned city leaders today about how this plan will be enforced. What'd you learn?
Well, Mary, there are still a lot of questions. The mayor and all of those people you saw with him today unveiling the Squeegee Collaborative recommendations, and really there's a lot to unpack. But ultimately, the big question is, how will this work and how will these recommendations be enforced? If you remember, for the last several months, we have heard repeatedly from Mayor Brandon Scott and his team that the laws on the books right now targeting and prohibiting some of the activity related to squeegeeing will not be enforced due to constitutional concerns. Now we know that there will be some enforcement zones where squeegeeing activity will be banned. We saw those zones earlier on that map. Those are the high-trafficked, known squeegee corners. Earlier today, we questioned what, if anything, changed in their thinking and the interpretation of the law, given the news earlier today.
We always enforce the law, which you heard about from Vicky today, about being seen as human, not human as an animal just because you're black. We're not going back to that ever again in Baltimore.
A lot of the proposals initially were in the roundabout ways of clearing the corners or rounding people up or pretty much just removing them from visibility. And we believe that the Constitution requires us to create a narrowly tailored approach.
So, Mary, again, it's still not clear, and we're also still trying to figure out what happens if and when squeegee kids move from those enforcement zones where that activity will be banned and go and squeegee perhaps in other corners, something the mayor says the collaborative will continue to consider. Mary?
Mackenzie, what are you hearing about the citations and the overall cost of this program?
2 other big questions. The deputy mayor, Faith Leach, she was the one working and leading the charge on this Squeegee Collaborative. She says the initial estimate for this is about $5 million. But she was also quick to say that this is what she called, quote, a living and breathing document, meaning that this plan could change, the price tag could change. The city's also working on some grants, the federal grants, private grants, working with the private sector to fund this proposal. The question becomes where the money will come from to pay these kids for the Earn and Learn program. And as for the citations, I asked the police commissioner, Michael Harrison, about it because, again, the city says that the laws on the books targeting the squeegeeing activity will continue not to be enforced. So we question what citations will be given. What will they be for? The police commissioner and the Baltimore Police Department spokesperson, who I questioned and followed up with after, says they're really still hammering out some of those details. So, Mary, we still have a lot of questions and hopefully learning more information as the days and weeks unfold. We're live in North Baltimore. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. Well, these are the 6 enforcement zones. They include Light and Conway, where Tim Reynolds was shot this summer, as well as either side of downtown at President and Jones Falls Expressway, where I-83 ends. That's all by Little Italy and Harbor East. And the 395 MLK corridor by the stadiums and the University of Maryland medical centers. In Northeast and Northwest Baltimore, Sinclair Lane and Northern Parkway spots will be targeted in this as well. Well, City State's Attorney-elect Ivan Bates is set to take over in January. He says he will do his part to enforce the laws and support Mayor Scott's Squeegee Collaborative. Bates also says the plan is a step in the right direction to address what he calls a long-standing challenge facing the city. Well, we want you to join the conversation. Do you believe the squeegee plan will be fully implemented and work? So far, 97% of the people who voted say no. You can still vote right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote.
A police source confirms to Fox 45 News that a gun was found at Merville High School in Baltimore, and it is the 6th gun found in a Baltimore City school this year. In September, a student was killed walking out of Merville after school ended. This is a developing story, and we'll bring you more information as it becomes available. Meantime, Governor Hogan is teaming up with the U.S. Attorney of Maryland and plans to use a surge strategy to combat gun crime in Baltimore. They're implementing a gun and drug monitoring team on high traffic roads in and out of Baltimore.
If you intend to drive with guns or drugs on a Maryland road, you better think twice. If you are on parole or probation, we may be coming to your home. We hope and expect that you're in compliance, and we're there to help. But if you're not in compliance, you will be held accountable.
Now, in the city, police and social workers will make unannounced visits to people who are on parole and probation. It's the first time social workers will be used in the field for parole and probation efforts. Mary?
Okay, thank you. The gubernatorial transition is underway as Governor-elect Wes Moore met with current Governor Larry Hogan in Annapolis today to go over his plan once he takes office. Brad Bell from our Sinclair sister station in Washington takes us through the meeting.
It's been a busy day for Governor-elect Wes Moore in College Park this afternoon, naming his transition team, which will be chaired by Lieutenant Governor-elect Aruna Miller and include Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks and former Howard County Exec Ken Ullman. He also met for an hour at the State House in Annapolis with Governor Larry Hogan. The current and future governors then walking down the grand staircase together, staging a scene aimed at showing their teams and they will be working closely together in the months leading up to Moore's inauguration, January 21st.
Our entire administration is going to do everything we possibly can to not only ensure the peaceful transition of power, but to make sure that we can help them get up to speed with whatever information they want.
You know, our teams have already been working closely. And we're already seeing not just how important this is and how seriously the Hogan administration is taking this, but also this is the way it should be. That you know, when the governor is saying that we're going to have a smooth and an orderly transition.
In Annapolis, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
Comptroller-elect Brooke Learman is announcing her transition team as she prepares to take office as Maryland's first woman elected to the office. The transition team includes current Comptroller Peter Franchot, along with 5 women. Learman says she wants the team to reflect her goals.
As the first woman independently elected to statewide state office in Maryland, comes with that, I believe, a responsibility to make sure that we are listening and learning from the women in Maryland. Somebody said to me the other day, "Why are you appointing all women?" And I said, "Why not?"
Peter Franchot is leaving the office in 2 months. He declined to say directly what's next for him, only saying he has several irons in the fire. Anne Arundel County's executive race is still up in the air. Republican Jessica Hare is currently leading incumbent Democratic County Executive Stuart Pittman by nearly 11,000 votes. But today is the first day the county is counting mail-in ballots. More than 45,000 have been returned, and election officials say it will take at least 3 days to complete that process. Ballots won't be counted over the weekend, including tomorrow for Veterans Day, meaning we won't have results until sometime later next week.
Yeah, and Veterans Day around here looks wet. Compliments of Nicole. You see the feeder bands or the beginning of kind of the edges of some of the banding with what's left of the storm pushing its way into almost now Virginia, well through North Carolina. There's a center of the circulation now over northern portions of the eastern panhandle of Florida and continuing to make the push north toward Georgia. Around here, I think our effects, they start late tonight into tomorrow morning's commute. That's when we could see some localized downpours. And then during the afternoon, especially tomorrow, as that center gets closest to us, it's just going to be a remnant low by the time it gets anywhere near us. But there could be some potentially damaging wind gusts out of some scattered storms that do develop within some of those bands that come through. Maybe even an isolated spin-up tornado, not out of the question, not a high chance, but again, not out of the question. And then on top of that, there is going to be some heavy rain, anywhere between about a ½ inch and 1.5 inches. Some locations could get as high as maybe about 2 inches of rain. And there's also the potential next several high tide cycles, especially down, say, Annapolis way, of at least a little minor coastal flooding. So overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, clouds continuing to thicken up, temperatures settling through the mid to upper 50s as we continue counting those absentee ballots, and some occasional rain moves in through 5 to 7 a.m. tomorrow. I'm going to let you know how heavy it could be tomorrow, and we'll time it out hour by hour in a couple of minutes.
Well, it has been a mild November so far, but it's never too early to start thinking about the snow season, or is it? The State Highway Administration says it's working with a $76 million snow budget this year, funding nearly 400,000 tons of rock salt and nearly 2 million gallons of salt brine. MDOT says it has a dedicated team to help keep Marylanders safe all winter long.
Our team is dedicated to keeping roads open and clearing them as quickly as possible, and they work outside 24/7 during the harshest weather events when most people are inside staying warm.
State officials say they have almost 3,000 pieces of equipment ready to tackle the winter season. They're also reminding Marylanders to call pound 77 for roadside assistance during winter months. Still ahead, legal action against the Washington Commanders. Why DC's top prosecutor says the football team failed city residents. And a strange discovery after Nicole swept through Florida, the Native American history unearthed on the state's sandy beaches. Here's our look at today's top trending stories. Number one, conspiracy theorist and talk show host Alex Jones will pay another $473 million for promoting false conspiracies about the Sandy Hook massacre. This is in addition to the nearly $1 billion payment Jones was ordered to pay last month to Sandy Hook victims' families. Jones says he only has $2 million to his name, but prosecutors are going after the profits from his talk show InfoWars. Number two, D.C. Attorney General Karl Racine will sue NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell and Washington Commanders owner Dan Snyder. This comes amid allegations over a toxic workplace within the Commanders. Racine says his office has been investigating the team for more than a year, and the league and team colluded to deceive D.C. residents about what was happening.
We've interviewed numerous witnesses, including former team employees who witnessed and experienced the conduct at issue. We reviewed thousands of internal documents produced by the Commanders and the National Football League.
Racine also claims Dan Snyder encouraged the toxic culture. He says the law calls for fines of up to $5,000 per lie. Number three, dozens of Virginia drivers are learning how water ended up in their gas tanks. The Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services says an inspection found rainwater leaked into the underground fuel tank of a gas station. It led to multiple drivers' cars breaking down after filling up at the same 7-Eleven. A state spokesperson says they only inspect the underground tanks about once every 20 months. Well, as Nicole sweeps through Florida, rescue crews are discovering ancient human remains along the coastline. Nicole D. Cardenas from our Sinclair sister station in West Palm Beach takes us through the surprising findings.
Well, those human remains have since been cleared, but this is actually the third time they have been discovered after a hurricane. The last two times were for Hurricane Sandy and Dorian, and it's believed right now that those human remains are from Native Americans and they're centuries old. The Martin County Sheriff's Office says a beachgoer discovered the remains earlier today. We found the person who discovered them, but he said he didn't want to go on camera. He told me he noticed them walking around the beach and immediately called the authorities to make sure those bones were properly cared for. Martin County Sheriff Deputy John Boondeseek says skulls and several leg bones were discovered. He says those bones will be processed and preserved.
The bones will be turned over to historians from some of the universities around here, and they will make sure they are properly respected and preserved, for history.
He added they wanted to lay the bones back where they found them. And he wants to remind everyone it is a felony crime to dig up artifacts, so he doesn't want people coming out here and looking for them. The sheriff's office and the locals here on Chastain Beach know that human remains are here. Reporting in Chastain Beach, Florida, Victoria DeCardenas.
Jonathan, every so often you do hear about this type of thing happening, especially with severe weather. It just takes away layers of land.
Yeah, all the sediment and the land. And I mean, on top of unearthing some of this stuff, we've also seen a lot of seawalls coming down in that same area of the Treasure Coast of Florida. That's been a big problem with this storm. So around here, thankfully, we are not going to have to deal with that type of breadth of storm surge or severe weather or heavy rain or damage. But we are going to have some impacts, at least locally, from Nicole, and that will be tomorrow during Veterans Day into tomorrow evening. The rain starts tomorrow morning on and off, could become heavy with some occasional downpours, and then during the afternoon there could even be a few isolated gusty storms in there, maybe even an isolated tornado chance. It's not out of the question, especially when you're on the eastern flanks of these landfalling tropical systems like we're seeing here as they unwind, that some of these feeder bands, you see, it's kind of a different look to things. If you go on the east side of the track of the storm versus the west side of the future track of the storm, where it's just more just kind of heavy rain, it's a little more what we call stable on the western side. On the eastern side, you get involved with some of the southerly and easterly winds and the extra humidity, and you're going to feel a lot more muggy for tomorrow. But you're also, again, going to get some of these leftover storms as they push northbound. And sometimes as these systems unwind, they still have a lot of spin with them. So that's why you can have these isolated tornadoes. Not probably as much as the potential they're seeing down to our south, but as this continues to move up northbound, we're going to see our nice weather pattern we've been enjoying, that beautiful weather today with highs near 70, fall apart. The clouds are thickening pretty quickly now down across Virginia and North Carolina, starting to see the rain move in. So the rain and high winds there. And then there's a cold front that's out to the west that's going to kind of cap all this off on Saturday and push it all away. But what that front is doing, it's kind of twofold. One thing is that it's bringing the system north and giving us the track that's taking it into the Appalachians, which eventually weakens it, but does give us some impacts. Now, something else the front is doing is the winds ahead of that are accelerating what's left of the storm. So the good news is here, unlike other systems like Ian, when that came through, we have a forcing to kind of get this thing out of here. So it's in heavy rain and then out with about a ½ inch to 1.5 inches of rain. North and west, where it kind of pairs up with the front a little better, or on that western side, that's where they could see 2 to 4 inches of rain. Places like Pittsburgh all the way up into western New York. Eastern side of the storm, again, that's where you have that severe weather potential, and that's where we're going to be, especially south, as the storm is a little stronger with the impacts there. As you move northbound, that's where the storm is kind of falling apart, and we also have a little less instability. If we get a couple of peaks of sun tomorrow, there will be that marginal risk of severe weather. So that's tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening. Heavy rain, gusty winds, the biggest threat, but there is that at least isolated chance of a tornado. So we do have a weather alert day for tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, heavy rain. Tomorrow afternoon, heavy rain and that potential severe threat. 63 now, winds out of the east at 3 miles an hour. That's pushing some water into the Chesapeake Bay. High tide at Annapolis City Dock. That's going to be at about 6:50 in about a half hour from now. So we do have a coastal flood advisory for some ponding potentially at the City Dock parking lot and around that Alex Haley Memorial. Now, future scan overnight into early tomorrow morning. The clouds continue to thicken up. Notice the rain moving in by about 7:45, 8 o'clock. An embedded thunderstorm, especially as we head into the afternoon. It's kind of on and off stuff. Again, bands of rain and maybe even some gusty winds, generally about 20 to 35 miles an hour toward tomorrow evening and into the early overnight hours before this stuff moves out of here. And it looks a lot better for the rest of the weekend. I'm going to plan that out all the way through the next 10 days in the exclusive 10-day forecast.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
This may not be the first image that comes to mind when you think of Las Vegas, but the snow-capped mountains of southern Nevada aren't that far away. 9 inches of snow fell this week at nearby Lee Canyon. Certainly no snow in Beaumont, Texas, but the Gulf Coast town does have great sunrises. You can see blue, purple, orange, and red in this fantastic shot.
Want to see your weather photos and videos on TV? Click Chime In on this station's website to share.
Well, it's never too late to finish school, right? An 88-year-old woman in Wisconsin is finally receiving her diploma. Check this out. Rosemary Lloyd put her cap and gown on this week to celebrate graduating with a bachelor's degree from Marian University. She was not able to attend the official graduation in December, so her classmates and professors brought the ceremony to her. As for what's next, Rosemary says maybe she will pursue a master's degree. More power to her.
Who knows? They might have me at their door trying to get into what's the next step of this education thing? I don't hear anybody contributing. No, it's just, who knows? That's the excitement of life.
I see a PhD in her future. Data from the U.S. Census Bureau shows students over 55 make up just 0.2% of undergraduates in the nation.
All right, exclusive 10-day forecast includes a weather alert day for tomorrow. Highs around 71 as Nicole's remnants move off to our north and west. Could see some heavy rain, maybe some gusty winds, especially later in the day, even an isolated severe storm. So we'll be tracking that closely with continuing coverage. And then Friday night, that stuff moves out after midnight. Saturday, a spot shower later in the day with a high 66. Wee hours of Sunday, that all ends, and then it's much colder, high 50, only 40s on Monday, 50 Tuesday, 55 with a few showers Wednesday. By next Friday, there could be some morning rain and snow showers, and it stays chilly into early next weekend.
Jonathan, thank you. Well, finally tonight, a Prince George's County teacher is being rewarded for her efforts to help students with cognitive disabilities find jobs. Leanne Holden Martin is receiving $27,000 as part of an Unsung Heroes program. Holden Martin teaches at Charles H. Flowers High School. The money will help her develop a website, host a job fair, and rent retail space to support her program. Congratulations to her. Well, that's all for Fox 45 News at 6. Family Feud's up next. We'll see you back here for the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. Good night.